I knew something was off when the espresso machine in the break room was gone. Just gone. No memo, no replacement, just a sad little puddle of burnt coffee oil and one lonely stir stick. That's the day I realized the heart of the company, hell, maybe the whole damn building, was being gutted in real time. But of course, nobody cared about the espresso machine. They cared about me even less. Until I left. I'm Susan, 44, Senior Backend Systems Architect at Hydra. I built their automation engine, the thing every multi-million-dollar contract sat on like a lazy king on a golden toilet. 3 years, thousands of commits. I wrote it alone while the company flailed through pivots, layoffs, rebrands, and one spectacular incident involving a marketing intern and a drone. The only reason any of our clients even tolerated Hydра's half-baked vision was because the damn system worked. Seamlessly, reliably, silently, like me. I never needed the spotlight. Didn't give a damn about leadership offsites or team-building karaoke nights. I preferred the machine room at 11 p.m., wearing noise-canceling headphones and eating vending machine almonds while tracing down bottlenecks no one else could see. That code base was my cathedral. Clean, modular, fortified like Fort Knox with two-factor authentication, and a kill switch no one knew existed. So of course, I wasn't invited to the rebranding party. Pause here. If you're one of the 90% of folks listening without hitting that subscribe button, go ahead and do it now. It helps more than you know. Also, drop a like if you've ever been silently holding an entire company together while your boss thinks cloud computing means saving a Word doc to Google Drive. It seriously motivates our team to keep sharing stories like this. Anyway, the new CEO, Lance, bless his shiny veneers and $12 haircut, decided Hydra needed to pivot to something sleeker. I remember the email. Subject line, future-proofing our stack, a culture of velocity. I read it 6 times and still couldn't find a single sentence with meaning. But I did catch the part about auditing legacy architecture for agility alignment. Translation? They brought in outside consultants to evaluate the system I'd built, the one holding together client pipelines, regulatory logging, and our own internal task orchestration. They didn't even ask me to be part of the review. Instead, I got an invite to a mandatory Zoom with a man who called himself a DevOps evangelist and used the word synergy 5 times in 90 seconds. He skimmed through one of my high-level diagrams and asked, "Why did you build a custom orchestration layer instead of relying on off-the-shelf CI/CD vendors?" I replied, "Because none of them could handle our legacy inventory ingest, the financial compliance audit trail, and our private LLM token gating in one clean thread-safe structure." He blinked like I'd spoken in tongues. The next week, they brought in a new DevOps lead from a failed crypto startup. He wore sneakers that looked like they were coded into existence, and every meeting smelled faintly of Axe body spray and fragile ego. I didn't fight it. That's not my style. I just kept documenting, kept watching, kept breathing through the absurdity as Lance held town halls about elevating visibility and embracing disruption, while the only thing getting disrupted was our uptime. They kept me in the dark, but I'd built the damn lights. My coworkers noticed first. Tiny things, the repo would go down for 10 minutes and I'd fix it before anyone asked. A permissions bug in the deployment pipeline mysteriously vanished overnight. They started calling me the ghost in the machine, half joking, half praying I'd never leave. They didn't know I was already preparing to. Because here's the thing, when you architect something from scratch, you don't just write code, you embed yourself. And me? I left breadcrumbs in the dark. Little tripwires. Not out of revenge, not even out of paranoia. Just in case. Just in case the espresso machine vanished one day and no one looked up until it was too late. And baby, it was too late. They announced the rebrand with a goddamn laser light show in the atrium. I wish I were kidding. Some poor intern queued up a dubstep remix of the company's old jingle, and Lance strutted out in a blazer so tight it looked like it had been shrink-wrapped onto his torso. A 20-foot banner unfurled behind him that read, Hydra 2.0, automation at the speed of vision. Vision apparently meant pretending the past didn't exist. I stood near the back, coffee in one hand, badge in the other, pretending I didn't hear the VP of sales whisper, "Who's the woman with the resting murder face?" A few engineers smirked. They knew exactly who I was. Hell, if I stopped pushing commits, half of their dashboards would go dark by lunchtime. But the C-suite crowd? They wouldn't recognize me if I set their Slack passwords on fire. The announcement was followed by an email flood. System audit begins Monday. External consultants will evaluate legacy architecture. And my personal favorite, all proprietary contributions are assumed company property unless otherwise negotiated in writing. That last one had Lance's fingerprints all over it, shiny and smug. Consultants showed up looking like the IT department from a Netflix startup drama. All beard oil and buzzwords. One of them tried to impress me by calling Python quaint but lovable. Another asked if I'd ever considered containerizing our cron job manager for vibes. I stared at him long enough that he left mid-sentence. They pored over my codebase like it was a crime scene. Thing is, they didn't understand a damn thing they were looking at. my system wasn't flashy. It was fortified, built to handle ugly real-world problems, not demo day theatrics. But when you don't understand something, it's easy to dismiss it as excessive. So that's exactly what they did. Redundant, over-engineered, needs streamlining. Lance loved those words, said them like he'd just discovered fire. Called an all-hands the next day and said we were decentralizing inefficiency by centralizing control. I choked on my lukewarm coffee. It wasn't just a rebrand, it was a purge. He unveiled the new org chart. The engineering department was getting realigned under strategic leadership. And at the top of that brittle little pyramid, Theo, the DevOps golden boy with the sneaker game and the emotional range of a houseplint. Theo once asked if JSON and YAML were interchangeable, like Coke and Pepsi. This was the man now overseeing the system I'd written while eating dinner out of Tupperware at my desk for 3 straight years. Then came the meeting, not a real one, a drive-by conversation outside the restroom like I was a temp they were trying not to offend. "Hey Susan, quick update," Lance said, smiling like a lizard in a heat lamp. "The board thinks we need to refresh our IP approach. Consolidate, so your contract is going to be reevaluated. Nothing scary, just procedure." "Reevaluated," I repeated, voice flat. "Totally standard," he said. "You've been amazing, seriously. But we need to think bigger, streamline, get scalable." The last time someone used that many buzzwords on me, I was trying to cancel a cable subscription. I nodded, went back to my desk, and stared at my terminal for 10 full minutes. Not typing, not thinking, just listening to the hum of a company preparing to eat itself alive. I started pulling old notes, backups, compiling logs, not because I planned to fight. That wasn't my move. No, this was about preservation. Because when a storm's coming, you don't argue with the clouds. You seal the windows and check the exits. They didn't want my system. They wanted a story they could sell to investors. One that didn't involve a middle-aged woman in hoodies who wrote code like it was a security protocol for a space launch. Fine, let them rebrand. But I built this thing in the dark. And what they didn't know? Some systems collapse very loudly when you remove the wrong beam. It happened on a Thursday. Not that days matter when you're about to be metaphorically, or maybe literally, set on fire by your own employer, but it's worth mentioning. Thursdays are cursed, always have been. That's when layoffs hit. That's when performance reviews become eulogies. And that's when Lance summoned me to the corner office that used to belong to someone who actually knew how our systems worked. He didn't offer a seat. He was standing behind his glass desk like a villain in a mid-budget streaming drama, all fake empathy and veneers. There was a junior HR rep in the room, eyes wide like she'd been told there might be tears or yelling. Poor thing, she was about to witness neither. "Susan," Lance said, and the way he said my name made my molars grind, like I was a child who'd colored outside the lines. "This is hard, but we've made a leadership decision." "Which means what exactly?" I asked. I already knew. You feel it in your bones before the words come. "We're transitioning the architecture team," he said, like he was describing a weather pattern. "Centralizing direction under Theo. You've done great work, seriously. But your skill set, it's just not aligned with the velocity we're aiming for." And then came the line, the one he probably practiced in the mirror. "Sweetheart," he said, "sweetheart, your code belongs to my company now." There was a silence after that, not the kind that fills a room, the kind that sucks the air out of it. Even the HR rep stopped blinking. He handed me a single sheet of paper with a boilerplate termination clause, a severance package that was insultingly clean, and a line that read, "Return all devices and wipe any local data as a condition of exit." "I'll need 10 minutes, I said calmly, "to clean up my machine." "Of course," he said, "just don't make it weird." I didn't reply. I just turned, walked back to my desk, sat down, and opened Terminal. Now here's what Lance didn't know, what no one knew. Because when you build a system from scratch, you pour 3 years of your life into a backend so tightly wound it hums like a tuning fork, you don't just build, you bake yourself in. So years ago, while I was optimizing system logs to run 18% faster and rewriting integration layers that Theo still thinks are plugins, I added something. A tiny, dormant line of logic, buried in a dependency file so mundane even the consultants wouldn't read it. I called it Susan Core, not because I'm vain, but because I'm honest. And Susan Core was the beating heart of the whole damn thing. A credential verification node that authenticated internal calls, managed third-party APIs, and ran sanity checks before any automated process could launch. It was subtle, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. And if removed without a proper handoff protocol, the system would flag it as corrupted. Not crashed, corrupted. A null repository. Useless. Dead weight, I knew what I was doing. I typed rm/rf tilde/hyver/core, watched the screen blink. A pause, one small confirmation, and then, gone. The system didn't scream. It didn't send alarms, it just went to sleep, like a bear curling into hibernation after eating all the berries in the forest. I logged out, shut the lid, unplugged my charger for the last time, and slid my badge across the desk with a practiced calm that scared the HR girl more than any tantrum would have. "Thanks for the opportunity," I said. No sarcasm, just a smile that could cut drywall. I walked out without looking back. Didn't clean out my drawer, didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a forwarding email. I didn't have to. Because when you gut an architect from her own cathedral, you better be damn sure you understand what holds up the ceiling. Lance thought he was stealing something from me. But the truth? He was already living in a house built on sand, and I'd just walked away with the last remaining shovel. Friday morning broke like a dropped plate. I wasn't there to see the panic begin, but I know how it started because I built the fuse. At 7:43 a.m., the DevOps team tried their usual deployment. Routine, automatic, allegedly streamlined. Theo, in his infinite wisdom, had scheduled an internal test push to prove how agile their new pipeline was without me. It was supposed to run 3 containers, validate the API handshake, and log a confirmation to Marston Bank's server for weekend wire prep. But instead of a green light, they got a brick wall. Error, authorization mismatch source repository undefined. Theo, ever the genius, assumed it was a syntax bug. He restarted the job. It failed again. Same error. He tried a rollback. The system spit out a deeper warning. No node found. Initiation refused. He tried to manually restore a prior build. That's when the core orchestration engine threw a nested rejection loop, something no one outside of me had ever seen. Something I designed to only appear if Susan core was missing, and the failover node hadn't been authenticated by a verified architect credential. Marston Bank's wire transfer system kicked in around 8:20. Their client-side validator hit the endpoint. Instead of confirmation, it bounced hard. The bank flagged the validation attempt as suspicious and temporarily froze the wire. $150 million. Suspended midair like a cartoon piano. Now here's the fun part. I didn't have to lift a finger. I wasn't even on the premises. I was in sweatpants on my balcony with a mug of Irish breakfast tea, watching a neighborhood squirrel make eye contact like it owed me something. My phone started buzzing around 8:41. Unknown numbers, Slack pings, an email from a panicked junior engineer with the subject line, "Did you ever encrypt the legacy repo? Please respond." I didn't respond. I read every message calmly. I watched as Theo posted in the company Slack, "Need urgent support, pipeline failing validation. Anyone have visibility into Susan core?" The channel went silent. I could practically smell his deodorant giving up. At 9:03, I received a formal notice from Marston Bank's enterprise client team. "Hi Susan, apologies for the intrusion, but we're encountering an unexpected authorization mismatch during your firm's validation sequence. The endpoint appears corrupted. Can you confirm whether your access credential has been rotated or reassigned?" I didn't reply to that one either. Not yet. At 9:17, the CTO, who once referred to my architecture as quirky but serviceable, finally tagged Lance in Slack. The post was short but loaded. Primary system routing failed. No backend compliance node available. What's our fallback plan? No one had one, because I was the fallback plan. The documentation for the kill switch was on a USB drive I kept in a drawer filled with dried pens and expired coupons for falafel. By 9:30, Lance barged into the DevOps bullpen with the investor on speakerphone. The same investor who'd been promised a fully autonomous backend and seamless API continuity. The same investor who now had to explain to Marston Bank why their flagship partner's validation system suddenly looked like an abandoned MySpace page. Apparently, Lance tried to bluff. Told them we're in the middle of a system refresh, that I had voluntarily deprecated old code and that everything was on schedule. And that's when the investor's lawyer asked a single question. "Did your architect offboard with a compliance log?" Silence. I imagine the pause stretched long enough to be measured in geological time. The lawyer followed up with something bone cold, because if she didn't, and you're touching sensitive client infrastructure, that's not a refresh, it's a breach. Theo started sweating. Lance started blaming. Interns started Googling what null repository meant. And me, I was buttering toast. Every system has a spine. And if you design it right, very right, you don't need revenge, you just need patience. Because the thing about houses of cards, they fall all on their own. Especially when the architect walks away with the blueprint and the glue. The investor's jet touched down at 11:06 a.m. I know because one of my ex-teammates, who still had the decency to send cryptic texts like "Police car light Iron Man has landed police car light," was quietly watching the slow-motion implosion from a conference room 3 floors up. Marcus Klein, lead investor, bored shark. The kind of guy who wears the same black polo every day like a cartoon villain and makes VCs tremble by clearing his throat. He hadn't been to Hydra HQ in over a year. Last time he visited, he left a handprint-shaped dent in a wall after a disagreement over vision. Now he was back. No warning, no handlers. Just him, a black leather laptop bag, and the quiet fury of a man whose $150M wire had just been bounced back like a bad check from a casino junkie. Meanwhile, the CFO, Jeff Patel, was mid-sabbatical somewhere in the Florida Keys, probably drinking rum out of a coconut. By noon, he'd been yanked back via emergency Zoom, still wearing a fishing shirt and sunburn, the word what frozen on his face for a solid 5 seconds when the dev team briefed him. Lance was already unraveling. He tried charm first, offering Marcus a kombucha, making nervous jokes about dev gremlins, throwing around words like transitional bottleneck and unexpected refactor latency. Marcus didn't sit. Instead, he placed his laptop bag on the conference table, opened it, and pulled out a printed screenshot of the validation failure from Marston Bank. Then he pulled out another, this one showing a stacked trace with no node found and a red box around the missing Susan core label. He didn't say a word, just laid them down like tarot cards. Theo tried to explain it away, said Susan's architecture was monolithic and undocumented, and that they didn't fully understand all the dependencies, which was the first true thing he'd said since putting on those god-awful foam sneakers. Marcus looked directly at him. So your solution, he said slowly, was to delete it? Theo shifted in his seat like he'd suddenly realized his pants were flammable. Lance jumped in to redirect. Look, we're working through the bumps. We had a transition plan. It's just that Susan, well, she didn't exactly make things easy. You know how senior engineers can be, territorial, cryptic. Where's the compliance log? Marcus asked flat. Lance blinked. I'm sorry, the offboarding protocol, Marcus said, voice sharper now. Where's the signed compliance log for the system architect who wrote the engine your platform depends on? You could hear the air conditioner humming. Somewhere outside, someone's car alarm chirped. No one spoke. No one breathed. Theo's mouth opened, closed. Lance made a noise like a chair squeaking, but it came from his throat. Jeff, the CFO, rubbed his temples over Zoom and muttered, "Oh my God." Marcus didn't move, just picked up the screenshots and tapped them once against the desk to align the edges. Let me say this clearly, he said. You do not own a system if you cannot validate its chain of custody. You don't control data you can't access. And you do not have a company if you cannot pass financial verification for a wire this size. He looked at Lance like he was considering whether the man had ever eaten paste as a child. You fired the architect, he said. Without paperwork, without protocol, without a goddamn clue. Lance started to protest, said something about assumed IP and severance clauses. Marcus held up one hand. You're the CEO, not a magician. Don't try to pull contracts out of your ass. Then he turned to the CTO, who'd been hiding behind his laptop like it was a blast shield. You signed off on her removal? Marcus asked. The CTO looked up pale. I was told it was approved by ops, was it? Silence. And in that silence, the truth finally bloomed, hot, humiliating, irreversible. They hadn't just fired an employee. They'd amputated the brainstem of their own company, with no backup, no handover, not even a goodbye, and me? I was still invisible. No LinkedIn post, no tweet, no Slack ghosting with teary emojis. I was just gone, like a heartbeat, like a kill switch, like a goddamn magician, one who knew exactly where every card was buried. By 2:14 p.m., the legal team had entered what I imagine they now refer to as the trench phase. You could smell the panic through the firewall. Paper rustling, phones ringing, that eerie Slack silence where no one's typing because they're all waiting for someone else to jump on the grenade. Legal's audit revealed what I already knew, but now it was real and in writing and traceable. There was no offboarding document for me, no compliance sign-off. No digital footprint confirming I'd transferred intellectual property, access credentials, repository ownership, or even my last Git commit metadata. Nothing but one Slack message from Lance. Read, hey, just go ahead and wipe your stuff clean before you head out. You know the drill? The emoji was the cherry on top. A passive-aggressive smiley face that would now sit on page 2 of what I imagine will eventually be a 30-page legal brief titled, How to Invalidate a $150M wire transfer in 1 click or less. Meanwhile, I was still quiet. Not hiding, just positioned. Like a scalpel resting next to a trembling hand. 3:02 p.m. I received an email. Subject line, quick clarification. It was from Jeff, the CFO, now back on grid and trying to fix this before the investor turned him into a cautionary tale. His message was short, no salutation, no signature. Did you remove core access as instructed? I stared at it for a moment. The wording was fascinating. As instructed. Like I was the intern sent to pick up lunch and accidentally detonated the company instead. I didn't reply with words. I just took a screenshot. Lance's original Slack message. Time-stamped, unambiguous. Then sent it with the subject line, per your records, no message body, no commentary, just that. By 3:27, I could feel the tension mounting across channels I was no longer even on. One of my old coworkers texted, bro. Marcus just threatened to put Theo on a flight with no return ticket. Another wrote, just locked Lance in a conference room. Not kidding. The system was still down. Marston Bank had issued a final hold notice, validation required by 5 p.m. or the transfer would be auto-canceled per their enterprise risk policy. And once canceled, there would be a full compliance review. External, invasive, the kind that digs into contracts, digital trails, exit paperwork, and proprietary access claims. Translation, if they couldn't prove I left clean, no investor in their right mind would touch them with a 10-foot venture pole. At 3:49, Marcus issued a demand to legal, confirm chain of custody logs or prepare breach disclosures for the board. Lance tried again to blame Theo. Theo blamed the consultants. The consultants had already lawyered up and ghosted the Slack. What none of them could admit out loud was simple. The architecture didn't break, they broke it, and I had the receipts. Not just Lance's Slack message, a digital audit trail so coldly precise it could double as evidence in a military tribunal. My system didn't go quietly, it left breadcrumbs, and those breadcrumbs were starting to catch fire. At 4:11, another message came from Jeff. Susan, what would it take to restore access? I didn't answer. Not yet, because this wasn't about vengeance. This wasn't a petty middle finger from a bitter coder who felt overlooked. This was surgery. Controlled removal of a tumor, and I wasn't done cutting. They had an hour left, and I was still holding the oxygen. The CFO walked back into Hydra HQ at 4:26 p.m., not metaphorically. I mean literally, he got off a red-eye, shaved in the airport bathroom, and walked straight into the conference room with the expression of a man who once negotiated down a ransomware demand by threatening to sue the hackers for copyright infringement. Jeff Patel wasn't a warm presence. He didn't make jokes, didn't do icebreakers, and absolutely did not tolerate chaos. That made today especially painful, because today, the chaos was wearing a name tag and sipping cold brew in the break room like it hadn't detonated the company's infrastructure 6 hours ago. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just opened a laptop, pulled up the logs, and started reading. EO tried to interrupt with a half-coherent explanation involving misaligned merge requests and cloud-native backfill strategies. Jeff raised one hand, palm up, and said nothing. The room went dead. It took him 50 minutes to understand what had taken 3 years to build, and 6 hours to unravel. Susan Core was a functional choke point, he said flatly, scrolling through a code map no one in the room fully understood. It's not just a module, he continued. It's a logic gate. It validates credentials, routes data traffic, verifies audit signatures, and timestamps every transaction we run through Marston. Without it, the system can't confirm identity, which means Marston can't validate the transfer, which means he clicked once, completely screwed. He turned to Lance, who had somehow aged 5 years since breakfast. Did you know about this node? We assumed it was part of a deprecated structure. The consultant said it wasn't necessary. Jeff pulled up another screen, internal communications, a Slack thread from 3 months ago. Lance had typed, let's sunset her legacy junk. Tell her to wipe anything that's not part of the new stack. It's over-engineered crap anyway, there it was. Proof that Lance had not only misunderstood the core system, he'd explicitly ordered its destruction. In writing, with an emoji. The investor's legal team, who'd been silently watching from the corner like corporate snipers, began assembling breach documentation. SEC risk disclosures, internal protocol violations, potential lawsuits for mishandled IP. At 4:43, Jeff stepped out of the room and called me. He didn't grovel, didn't beg, didn't try to spin the situation. He just said, Susan, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I asked if he was on a secure line. He said yes. I said, then check your inbox. A moment later, he received a single folder. No fluff, no flair. Just one document, PDF, time-stamped clean as a whistle. It was a memo Lance had sent 2 weeks prior, buried in an internal thread labeled Clean House Initiative. In it, he'd written, we need to clear dead weight from the stack. Start with Susan's stuff. Mark it obsolete and delete it by EOM. The final sentence, if she complains, remind her it's not her system anymore. That memo was gold-plated dynamite. Jeff read it twice. Then I heard a long exhale. I'm not asking you to fix this, he said. Not yet. I just need to understand how far it goes. It goes to the bone, I replied. The pipeline, the compliance layer, the vendor endpoints, even the internal logs. Susan Core was never ornamental. It was the skeleton, and you amputated it. There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, we'll be in touch. Soon, I ended the call, didn't smile, didn't pace, just sat in my chair with a cup of lukewarm tea and listened to the hum of the fridge. Because the power shift didn't come with applause, it came with precision, with documentation, with bloodless truth sliding across a table like a scalpel no one thought to check before the surgery began. And now, the knife was in my hand, and they'd finally noticed. Monday morning, 9:01 a.m. War Room looked like a tech startup had been caught cheating on its taxes. 3 giant screens glowed with terminal logs, legal memos, and bank correspondence. Everyone was seated, except Marcus. The lead investor stood near the window with the posture of a man watching his investment smolder on the pavement below. His jacket was still folded over his arm. He hadn't even bothered to hang it up. Lance was seated in the center, sweating through a crisp white shirt that now looked like it had been pressed with panic. His fingers trembled on the desk. Jeff sat next to him, calm as ever, holding a tablet with the grace of a man about to deliver a public beheading. Theo was not in the room. Word was he'd taken personal leave, which, in Hyver speak, meant he was currently trying to rebrand as a freelance consultant on LinkedIn. The room was silent until Jeff spoke. Before we make any decisions, he said, scrolling slowly, we need to establish sequence. So let's start with the obvious. He turned the screen toward Lance. Did you give Susan deletion orders? In writing, Lance shifted in his seat. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Jeff tapped the screen once. A Slack thread appeared. Lance's original message, hey, just go ahead and wipe your stuff clean before you head out. You know the drill, then below it, a screenshot. My response via email, timestamped and digitally verified. Please confirm folder deletion per Slack message. Done, just 2 lines, neat, final, the room went still. The only sound was the gentle whir of a ceiling fan spinning like a noose. Lance tried to recover. We didn't know how central that module was. The consultants told us the consultants don't sign off on our infrastructure. Jeff interrupted, voice ice cold. You do? Marcus finally turned from the window. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Your system, he said, is dead. He walked to the screen, tapped it lightly, and repeated, this time slower, quieter, more surgical, and you signed for the funeral. Lance's shoulders collapsed in on themselves. He looked smaller now, like someone had pulled the string on a blow-up CEO doll and let the air out. Jeff turned to Marcus. Breach documentation is ready. We can file by end of day. Don't bother, Marcus said. We'll settle this internally. But I want Lance off platform, effective immediately. Legal nodded without a word. They'd already drafted the paperwork. Lance opened his mouth to protest, but there was no oxygen left in the room, no allies, no excuses, and no system. Across town, I refreshed my inbox. 1 new email. Subject, System Access Request Message. Hi Susan, as discussed. I'd like to engage your LLC under emergency contract to restore baseline operations. Please advise terms. I read it twice. Sipped my coffee, didn't smile. Instead, I opened a blank document and began writing the new license agreement. It was short, simple, 4x my old rate, strict scope terms, all access logged and watermarked, and 1 line of code I'd add quietly, invisibly, just before handoff. A new credential watermark, embedded into the root node. Not intrusive, not malicious. Just a whisper in the wires, architect, S. Wilkins verified owner, not revenge, not pettiness, just accuracy. They wanted the system back, they could rent it. And the next time someone thought to call me sweetheart while stealing my work, they'd know better. Because even silent systems remember who built them. And some architects never forget where the weak points are buried. Lance was gone by 2:17 p.m. Not fired in the traditional sense, no cardboard box, no slow walk of shame. It was quieter, clinical, a line in an internal memo titled Leadership Transition Plan, buried between vendor updates and Q4 projections. His departure was categorized under loss of material assets under negligent command. Translation, you crashed the ship, and now we're scraping your name off the hull. I watched the news ripple across the channels I still had ghost access to. His name vanished from the org chart, his access revoked, his emails forwarded to legal. Someone, probably an overworked intern, started untagging him from project documentation, 1 Slack message at a time. By 3 o'clock, my LLC was formally contracted. The emergency terms were generous, 4 times my old rate. No NDA traps, no IP clauses buried in fine print. This time, I set the terms. They didn't even try to negotiate. Repository was dead on arrival, of course. I didn't bother fixing it, I rebuilt it from scratch, my way, secure, flexible, and absolutely idiot-proof. There would be no more Susan core this time, no hidden choke points, no secret triggers because I wasn't coming back. This wasn't a return. It was an acquisition of control, of narrative, of worth. And before I zipped the final build and pushed it to the server, I opened the root index and typed 1 line. Code that changed functionality. Just a fingerprint, a signature. Architect, S. Wilkins verified owner, anyone looking closely would find it. And they would know this wasn't just some system slapped together in a sprint by a DevOps intern with a Wi-Fi instability problem. This was mine. At 4:52 p.m., Marcus, the investor, called me directly. Just reviewed the final deployment, he said. Smooth, fast, cleaner than it's ever been. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch. Then he said it, you own more of this company than he ever did. I let that sit for a moment, not out of ego, but because it was true. Not because I'd clawed for power or played politics in town halls. But because when everything else collapsed, when the money froze and the lights flickered, they didn't call the rebrand team. They called the builder. They always do. I closed my laptop, poured the last of the coffee into a chipped mug, and stood to watch the sun cut across my apartment wall like a line of demarcation. Old life, new rules. As I sent the final invoice, I attached a message with no greeting, no sign-off, no fluff, just 8 words. Next time, I said, don't call your architect sweetheart. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.